Tom, let me move over to what happened last night. Obviously, a much larger situation, far more arrests at Columbia. But there is a theme that is emerging in a number of these places, which is that officials are saying, police are saying, that many of the people are not students. They are calling them outside agitators. They have other phrases for them. What do we really know?
Right. So last night I spoke to Deputy Commissioner Rebecca Weiner from the NYPD. And, I think the concern that she had, and one of the things that one of the reasons why they held that press conference last night and put out a video, they were concerned about the change at Hamilton Hall, and specifically the presence of several individuals that they say, the NYPD says, they've been on their radar for a number of years, who show up at these things and don't have any particular ideology. It's pro-Israel today, pro-Palestine tomorrow, something else next week. It's not about the ideology. It's not about the message. It's not about taking a stand. It's about trying to engage with law enforcement in a potentially violent way in order to get that viral moment that it will cascade across the internet. In part of that, in releasing that video, they highlighted one woman who has made it, frankly, a career, according to her website, basically telling people how to engage in these perhaps more confrontational protests. And that's somebody the NYPD could be looking at here as far as one of those outsiders who could help kind of foster the environment they were starting to see that really concerned them in Hamilton Hall yesterday. There's been some criticism about something that the Deputy Commissioner of the NYPD, Tariq Shepard, showed on Morning Joe this morning, which is this lock and this chain that was found on campus. Some people said, well, that's a bike lock that you can buy at Columbia. What do you mean that's coming from an outsider? But the fact that it was used in the type of very heavy chain set that was used, according to the NYPD, those type of techniques, taking out cameras, setting up barricades, bringing barricades into the building, turning over the furniture and zip tying it together in a way that could keep police from getting in and create some sort of a clash or confrontation. That's the type of techniques they say that they saw that concerned them, and that's what they're pointing to from outsiders, not where a specific lock or a chain came from, but just the overall message of this was something that went beyond people protesting for a cause in their eyes.
Is it their suggestion that if not for these outsiders, what we saw would not have happened?
I think so. I think if you look at the progression of events here, the NYPD said, look, if Columbia wants us to come in, they've got to invite us in. It's private property, and unless there's a risk to a life or a complaint of a crime, we can't go in there anyway. In Columbia, because of the history with the New York City Police Department that goes back decades, that's not an area where Columbia has felt in the past they want to include the NYPD. So I don't think from a law enforcement perspective there was any public safety concern about kids being camped out in tents on a lawn. I think where it changed for them is when they saw some of the tactics that were used at Hamilton Hall, and that concerned the New York City Police Department. And that's what they've said. They've said it publicly. That's them talking, not me.
Eugene, you've talked to a lot of people about this. I know you even talked to some folks at the encampment at GW, at George Washington University's campus a few days ago. For you, how key is the delineation between students and outside agitators? And I'm just wondering your overall impression of this.
Well, Chris, frankly, I'm really skeptical whenever I hear that phrase outside agitators, because I remember that same phrase was used in the South, in my hometown in South Carolina, to delegitimize civil rights protests, to say, well, it's not the good people who live around here, it's those outside agitators who are stirring up all this trouble, when in fact that was not the case. Now, I can't say that the New York police are mistaken or are lying about this, but I think we should allow the students their agency in this. At least they did want to do what they did, and they're committing acts of civil disobedience, which they know or should know bring consequences, and that's, that tradition is older than this country. It starts with the Boston Tea Party. So we haven't seen student activism like this for a while, and I guess it's kind of unfamiliar, but we have seen it before, and we've seen it a lot bigger than we're seeing now.
Yeah, I'm sure you've had a lot of conversations with folks, and even among people who would defend and do defend the right of students to have their protests, there's this other side conversation going on that it can be fodder for Republicans, fodder for Donald Trump, that they're using this to say this is part of the lawlessness that has been allowed to happen under Joe Biden. Do you think that there are political ramifications for this?
Oh, I think quite possibly, and you could look at history and say quite likely. I mean, it kind of depends on the scale and ultimate scope of these protests, of this activism, how long it goes on, how it evolves. But remember 1968 and the crescendo of Vietnam protests. Of course, a lot happened in 1968, but there were protests, and then the days of rage at the Chicago Convention. All of that was really bad for the Democratic Party, and arguably played a big role in electing Richard Nixon. So I think that's why Republicans are jumping in so eagerly into the fray, at least rhetorically. But there's no guarantee that would happen again, and certainly no guarantee that the extent of the protests and, well, back then the violence, which of a kind we haven't seen yet. There's no guarantee that it's going to get to a scale that it has a huge impact on the election.
Eugene Robinson, Tom Winter, thank you both very much.